This morning we're going to learn about the mod operator, which stands for modulo. And let's go ahead and look at our collection here. And in this case, I think that most of the items I have, if we look at number specifically, which is the number, are odd. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to apply the modulo operator, and we're going to look at numbers that are divisible by 9, and we will get a surprising result, which is a good thing. We'll get one result that we expect and one result that some may find surprising. So the modulo operator, the logic behind it is very useful. It's one of those that when someone asks me on the spot, where would I use this in? I'm like, and then I run into all kinds of problems that involve the modulo operator. So it basically, the syntax is, generally speaking, in object-oriented programming, you're going to pass in a value, usually an object, let's say x, hypothetically. We have an object called x, it's a number, and the modulo is what looks like the percent sign, in most programming languages, and then we have another number. So we say x percent, and let's say 2 to make it easy. So x percent 2, what is the remainder is what modulo is looking at, okay? So let's suppose x is 4. What is the remainder of 4? Basically, if it's divided by 2, what is the remainder going to be? 0, right? Okay, let's suppose that x was 6, and we're looking at the modulo, and we look at 3. Okay, so what is the remainder of x divided by 3? It's going to be 0, right? Because 3 goes into 6 2 times. Let's suppose we have 7, and we're dividing it by 3. What's the remainder? 1. Right, 3 will go into 7 2 times, but it's going to be a remainder of 1. So the modulo result would be 1. And in fact, for the sake of this video, I'm going to actually independently demonstrate this in PowerShell, because that actually would be much easier to grasp for some people. Because I understand modulo may be like, huh, what? And yeah, that would make a lot more sense. So I'm going to fire up PowerShell here, and we will look at it in PowerShell. Meanwhile, while that's loading, and we'll look at the logic behind that. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at all the values that are divisible by 9. So for those of you who are more familiar with this, we will just go ahead and apply this here. So I'm going to find, and in this case, number is our numeric value. I'm trying to do two things at once. Okay. So we have number, and then we're going to look at the modulo operator, which we're going to open up a bracket. The modulo operator is $mod. And then we're going to say 9 is what we want it to be divisible by. So we want all the values that are divisible by 9 where the remainder is going to be 0. Okay, so that's the syntax. All right, and whoops, and then we'll do that pretty. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, I knew I was missing right here. All right, and you'll see that we get 9 and we get 0. So keep in mind that 0 divided by 9 is going to have a remainder of 0. And it makes sense, because what division is I always like to say, suppose you have 6 apples, and you want to divide 6 apples into 2 containers. How many apples are going to be in each container? 3. That's why when people start getting into philosophical arguments about divisible by 0, I'm like, it actually makes perfect sense if you think about it. You have 6 apples. You want to divide them into 0 containers. How many apples are going to be in each container? There are no containers. Philosophy doesn't need to be discussed. Anyway, that's a different conversation for a different day. So that's how modulo works, and you could look at, for instance, even. It usually is even. That's even or odd. I'll give you an example really fast of where I've used that, is counting whether going through a regex pattern and knowing that if it's odd, I'm going to apply this logic. If it's even, I'm going to apply this logic over here. Okay, so it's PowerShell. So if I say 5 and I do modulo 2, what do you think the result is going to be? 1, right? What is 5 divided by 2? It's 2, but there's a remainder of 1, right? So what this is returning is the remainder. So let's do some more practice. 5, what's 5 divided, 10 divided by, 5 divided by, yeah. 10 divided by 2, what's the remainder going to be? None, right? Because 5 times 2 is 10, okay? And then, of course, one more. We already did that one. Let's do this one. What is 7 divided by 4? What's the remainder of 7 divided by 4? And that is 3. So modulo is going to be returning the remainder. Now in Mongo, the syntax, of course, is going to be, you're going to use the modulo, which is $mod, and then in brackets, square brackets, you're going to pass the divisible by and then what the remainder should be. So again, if we want to divide it by 2 and we want it to where the remainder is 0, then we're going to say 2, 0, and then close the square bracket.